Hello, and welcome to the OpenStack Startup Series from Cloud Dawn. We have Evan Powell and Patrick Hoolboom from StackStorm. Hello, Evan. Hello, Patrick.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So, Patrick, Eve, we met in Hong Kong. That's when November 2013, and that's when you guys were launching. Do you remember? Tell me about your story from then.
Go ahead, Evan. I'll let you kick off from Hong Kong.
Okay. Yeah, at the time that we first met, we were out talking to a lot of operators, and it includes folks that aren't using OpenStack, but AWS, Facebook. We had an advisor who was running cloud infrastructure at eBay, PayPal, who of course is using a lot of OpenStack, and we were listening, and we're really at that phase, I believe. We had already started cutting some code to get their feedback, but so maybe it was active listening. And now you fast forward quite a while, and as of last November, we've open sourced StackStorm, and we're now on 0.8. It even has a GUI. And what we have found is that the world needs what a lot of these large operators have written, which is essentially if this then that, or an operations automation framework that includes event intelligence and workflow. So yeah, now we're off to the races, lots of users, customers, and trying to get the community more excited about it as well. But we are getting some big contributions from the HPs of the world. Rackspace demoed us on stage last week. It's fun times.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah. So for the benefit of the audience, can you please tell? I mean, we talked a little bit about like how you kind of started StackStorm, but maybe if you want to give like a tagline or a quick elevator pitch, please go ahead about what StackStorm is and what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So StackStorm really is event-driven automation, or if this then that, for operations. So listen to events, make decisions based upon what you see in those events, and then take actions. So we tend to run on top of, let's say, Chef or Puppet or something else. And we tend to be listening to GitHub or to monitoring as a source of events.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really the glue. Okay. We have one user who basically says we're the glue for their entire environment, and that we like to think of ourselves as transparent and dynamic glue. So the metaphor may not be perfect, but you get the idea.
Yes. So I'm sure like the operators are loving you, right? So operators, OpenStack operators.
To the drug work and focus more on what they want to get done. Patrick, as an operator, weigh in. Sorry.
No, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, there's a lot of excitement around what we're doing in the problem space we're trying to solve. We're really bringing people a very powerful platform to help avoid the technical debt that operators tend to take upon themselves in order to get these deployments done and get this support done in a timely fashion.
Sweet, very good. You talked a little bit about how you got started, right? Can you please tell me a little bit about like coming from your startup-y background, and you've done like more than two startups now. What pushed you, or what made you to start startup? I mean, this is for Evan. Why did you start StackStorm?
At least two other startups that I'm willing to talk about. We don't. I was a so-called.
At least what's on LinkedIn, okay? So.
Yes. I was an entrepreneur in residence at a seed fund called Exceed Capital, which basically means you get to meet other entrepreneurs, and it also means as an entrepreneur you calibrate by seeing other ideas, a little bit about what I need, as an entrepreneur, and what looks good to me. Okay. And so in that context, I met Dimitri Zamin, who is my co-founder and CTO, although really he got it going before I joined.
Okay.
And Dimitri's background kind of speaks for itself. He ran a large piece of vSphere engineering at VMware. And before that, he ran engineering at a company called Opalus, which Microsoft bought to become System Center Orchestrator.
Okay.
And we quickly realized that we're complementary. He's the best engineering leader I've worked with, had the pleasure of working with, and that we shared a vision of just how broken IT still is, even with today's solutions out there. And we both drank the Kool-Aid around how DevOps and those cultural approaches, but also better technologies, we're leading. Really, I mean, eBay is one. I think it's been talked about. They're probably something like 50 times more productive in terms of deploys per developer per day than some of the companies I had sold into over the years, the too big to fail banks.
50 times?
50 times.
Sweet.
And
Okay.
that, I sort of didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, eBay has multiple applications, but to be clear, it is actually a simpler environment in a lot of ways than, say, Bank of America, who have thousands of applications. But nonetheless, we both saw the same things and got excited, and got some folks saying that if you build something along these lines, we might just use it. And so that's how I dove in, and really happy. And pretty quickly Patrick joined us because we knew that while I'm sort of a relatively old enterprise software entrepreneur, Dimitri's a proven guy who can bring scalable architecture and get high quality code written for customers fast. We needed to know, neither of us firsthand, were running a big DevOps shop. I had done ops many years ago. And so really happy that we were able to get Patrick involved pretty darn early as well. And there's been this symbiosis between all of us as we built this company.
Sweet. Okay, that's cool. You talked about your CTO and Patrick. Tell me a little bit more about your company. How big are you guys? How many employees?
So we're 12 people right now.
Okay.
We are growing quite quickly. We're generating, revenues now a little ahead of plan. And if you go through the list, I would brag about everybody working with us. In Montreal at PyCon, we will be presenting about Python, some innovations we've made in Python itself to do what we're doing. And Tomas Muras, who is one of the project leads of LibCloud, which is a great open source project, as you probably know, works with us. Just to pick one. Lakshmi Kannan, who has a PhD in comp sci, but also worked at AWS helping build some automations there, and then at Rackspace, to pick a couple. And you just go through the list. Obviously, we have quite a bit of VMware, folks with VMware background as well, some real architects with expertise. It's a powerful team. James Fryman joined us pretty recently, well, several months ago now from GitHub, a peer of Patrick's. Patrick helped build up the DevOps approach at a company called CloudMark, which is arguably the leading, span filtering as a service company. He could talk more about that better than I could. So we've been able to get great people, and people say there's a war for talent. There certainly is, and actually StackStorm will help you win that war and help you make your talent more productive. But we've also just been able to get incredible people. And then we also have a couple contractors helping us, but as of right now, I'm the only person who doesn't touch the code.
It's good, I guess.
Yes, it's good for us that I don't touch the code. Yes,
that's an awesome team that you have built. Patrick, tell me about your views, or what do you think about your experience at StackStorm so far? What is exciting to you here?
It's been an amazing experience for me. I always made the joke that I was doing DevOps since before the term DevOps existed type of thing. And I've spent a long time preaching about breaking down the silos and trying to get these things in place at various organizations. And I could never understand why my frustration was only my frustration, and I didn't see that other people understood it. And when Evan and Dimitri contacted me and kind of told me their idea, it's like this light bulb went off, and I knew instantly that's what we wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. And so getting in there on the ground floor and being able to help drive product direction and the innovation in the direction that I felt was the right way. And from my experience building high volume operations environments has been fantastic. And it's an amazing environment where there is no silos, right? We built our culture from the ground up that way, and it's fantastic.
Great to hear that. Please.
Well, one aha moment that I think Patrick helped us notice was what we call operational patterns as code.
You mentioned that back in you were hinting at least in during the Hong Kong summit.
And now you can see, even in our GitHub or on our community site, you can download an entire continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline that does canary deployments. And what's crucial here is that by abstracting away the intelligence, the automations, from the infrastructure, your flavor of OpenStack plus AWS plus even your permissions on GitHub, because as you know, a lot of scripts have a lot of company-specific information in them. But by abstracting away the integrations from the automations, which are the logic, you're now able to share those automations, which we call operational patterns, as code.
Sweet.
And this is sweet. I mean, this is pretty profound because folks like, I think yourself, Patrick, the operators, they want to see it in a file format. In our case, it can be YAML or otherwise JSON defined. But YAML, I mean, you can look at it and holy smokes, this is a canary pipeline, and it can be like 15 lines because there's a lot of power underneath it.
Right.
So that people get really, really excited about the notion of being able to grab us. And yeah, again, they may have to tweak a permission or an integration here or there, but they can get going on a really powerful automation in a matter of minutes.
You can probably call it like a design pattern for DevOps.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And I have this utopian dream of operations teams now sitting down and doing code reviews just like the developers do across their workflows, and that's I have this that's my grand mission with all of this, and that's what I've gotten out of this. Is I'm really looking forward to the point where we get to that, where people are iterating fast across their behavioral patterns, just like they're iterating fast across their code now.
Wow, that is ambitious, and that's awesome. Like an operator is going to be like hell lot. It's going to make operations hell lot easier and more deterministic, I would say. And so come on, I mean, let me rephrase it, or let me repeat it so that I understood, I got it correct. So these patterns are like infrastructure independent, right? Like this doesn't depend on, or these are not tied to whether it's OpenStack cloud or Amazon cloud, public, private. No.
Exactly.
Okay.
What load balancer you're using? None of that. Yes, exactly.
So and you have open sourced them. You have them available on GitHub.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
Great. Very good. And so this anybody, for instance, like an OpenStack operator can pick it up. Maybe I'm just stretching. I'm just thinking in terms of the OpenStack operators, OpenStack cloud. So somebody who's interested in OpenStack, making the OpenStack operations easier, so he or she can pick it up and then either tweak it for OpenStack clouds, or at least like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
He could pick up the patterns that we or another user have written, tweak them specifically for their OpenStack deployment, and then what we hope for is then submit a PR, backup pull request back against the repo saying, hey, look, I've made these improvements to that pattern. Why don't you guys take a look and see what you think? And so that's really what we envision is this whole behavior as code, if you will.
That is great. I will look for the GitHub, but Patrick, if you could email me quickly the link to that one when I'm posting a briefing on this one, I would be very happy to share that.
Yeah, I can send you the link to our community repository. You can take a look.
Please. Great. Cool. So both of you talked about the StackStorm product and the value propositions bringing in. Can you please tell me a little bit about your pricing model?
Sure. So today we are doing some support for StackStorm, and obviously tend to be in production cases. And we will be publishing the pricing, but it hasn't been solidified quite yet.
Okay.
But it's quite reasonable, and we're mostly focused on getting more folks like like the HPs and others contributing to StackStorm and working with us as they use it and as they have ideas. But yeah, with 1.0, which is a few months out, we will be launching, what we will be publishing that pricing. I'm a big believer in being transparent. Not just in open source companies, but just in general. It makes it easier. So we're not trying to hide it. We just are not at the point that we're comfortable that it's going to be accurate for the next year or two.
That's perfectly fine. So just curious, like you mentioned more than a couple of times that your target customers is more like HPs of the world. So why? I'm just interested in seeing why not the end consumer, someone like eBay, for instance, but a vendor like HP. Can you please talk about that? Yes.
Yeah, no, it actually is the Global 2000s, and it would be the tends to be those where IT does matter, where they have some sort of initiative underway to boost overall operational agility, which is many companies, of course. Having said that, some of the first customers, paid customers, are large SaaS operators.
Okay.
Who of course have competitive pressure, and they tend to be technically proficient, so they tend to be early adopters.
Okay.
We can drive to them, things like that.
Okay.
But we are getting adoption across the open source community from all sorts of users. If you just want to wire, I don't know, Patrick, help me out on good integrations, but PagerDuty and New Relic, well, you can do that directly.
Yeah.
But if you want to do that in a way that's transparent, so that if, God forbid, you decide you like VictorOps instead of PagerDuty in the future, why wouldn't you use a StackStorm? Or you want to tie that to New Relic, but also AppDynamics and Nagios, and as soon as you go from 1 or 2 integrations that you're maintaining to 3 or 4, you incur technical debt.
Okay.
As Patrick referred to, and as soon as you start trying to make decisions based on the information passing between those packages, you start to need to do some sort of rules engine or conditional logic. Why not have ours for free?
Okay.
So I think we're seeing adoption is much broader than maybe those types of users that are paying us today.
Okay.
So yeah. You could use us as a utility here, and we don't have at it and participate. If you get to the point that you're running your company with the help of StackStorm, you may end up becoming a customer.
Okay. And then when you say HPs of the world, so are they using for their internal usage, or is it for their public cloud, or is it for their customers? Can you please clarify on that?
Well, Rackspace announced last week, as I said, this partnership. And in their case, they started it as a StackStorm as something they use to deliver services to their customers.
Okay.
And it's and including auto scaling, incidentally, and some continuous integration, continuous deployment. So pretty excited about that, and they're using us actually in part behind Slack.
Okay.
So chat ops. So
okay.
They're enabling. It's one heck of an offering, whether it's StackStorm or not, but that Rackspace has. Now they do use us some internally as well.
Okay.
But the announcement from Rackspace was, in the demonstration they did at Solve, showed DevOps services being delivered to customers, where the customers are able to start interacting with Rackspace and with their environment via chat, which is tied into super powerful automation underneath. and we are the super powerful automation underneath.
Okay, so how easy is it for you mentioned earlier that it's a kind of a glue layer, and I'm understanding it to be like an enabling platform which can do super cool things like tying down various pieces in this DevOps tool chain. Now, how easy is it to add those hooks? How easy is it to add those? Say like I want to hook to like a homegrown chat client, for instance, or a page.
One quick point I would say, Patrick, and I'll turn it over to you, is when we open sourced in November, we had something like 12 integrations. And last time Patrick, I think, ran the script to count it a week or two ago, we had 620.
Wow. Okay.
And we project that we'll be, over well over 1,000, in the maybe 2,000 range this summer.
Okay.
So the point being, there's a lot of Legos there now. And your box of Legos is a lot more interesting than it was 4 months ago.
Sure.
But you will often need to change one of those Legos or do a new Lego, to your point. So Patrick, what would you say?
Yeah, no, I was just going to, much like the configuration management utilities out there, we're building up a pretty beefy community. So there are a lot of integrations that you can just download and use as they are. But if you have your own scripts or your own tools, your homegrown tools that you're using, we've made it very easy to integrate in with those scripts. You write a simple metadata file with, it's like 5 or 6 lines of information, and then our system can register that script and use it.
Okay, that's impressive. Now, you mentioned earlier that also you would say like I'm a customer who maybe I'm not like able to get these hooks going. Would you be able to help us out, or is it more like operations and support?
We are able to help you out. There will be additional partners that we will be talking about who will be able to help you out. There's actually a contributor, just to give you an idea, who did most of our PagerDuty integration while being a computer science student in Pakistan.
Okay.
So I mean, you're getting, it's relatively early, but there are a handful of people that can provide integration services using StackStorm already getting active in the community. We're going to have a guest blog by one of them pretty soon.
Okay.
We kicked off with 2 partners in addition to Rackspace, but 2 professional services like partners last week actually. So.
Okay, and then is that information available or public yet? Is it on your site yet?
It will be if folks are willing to look at our Twitter feed or the blog. Or obviously out in GitHub and so forth, you'll see some of these parties contributing. But Rackspace would not be a bad place to start, or ourselves. And we do some of this professional services, but we're relatively picky in who we work with, given all that we have on our plate.
Okay, very good. Good. So I'll ask one more question about like how do you compare against other DevOps automation tools or platforms. For the benefit of the audience, like Evan was saying, so I understand that you're just not a one set of tool chain, but it's more like an enabling platform. On top of it, lot of things could be done. But if someone wants to make a comparison within, say, a Jenkins-based DevOps tool chain, or even like other startups that are doing more DevOps automation, so how do you place yourself against them, or maybe you're against your competition? Please go ahead.
Right. So we tend to be complementary to Jenkins, but when you start having Jenkins do operational tasks, usually you're not sleeping as well at night at that point, and we can help. And so very good integrations with Jenkins, and then we help you, again, have Jenkins do what it's great at, have us do the workflow and rules engines and so forth for the rest of the overall pipeline. Okay. And the pipeline, I mentioned, that is downloadable, CI/CD pipeline, actually does wrap around Jenkins. So yeah, we see these pockets of automation or silos of automation, and we're not saying replace, that tool. What we're saying is you're now wiring it together with something else.
Okay.
Don't try to make a tool that's good at one thing you're wiring. StackStorm is good at one thing. It's the wiring that ties all the other automations together so they can be good at their one thing.
Okay.
That's really us. And back to the founding story quickly, we've designed the team so that we have architecture and architects on team, so that one of our customers is now scaling us across 4 data centers with each of, I think, 7 or 8 components that we have scaled horizontally. So we built from the ground up with an architecture that can handle being the transmission for these operational environments, as opposed to a tool that a DevOps engineer ran on their laptop trying to somehow grow up and become your wiring. Okay. It's very hard to get from individual utility to I handle, multi-continent automation, and we've been built just to do that wiring piece, which we think is valuable.
So you approach from a top-down approach, but that you're building.
I think that's fair.
Yes, very good, great. Okay, cool. That's interesting context and interesting explanations around what you guys do. I want to take the conversation a little bit towards focus to OpenStack. So you launched at the OpenStack Summit, and tell me a little bit more about what is your involvement with OpenStack? Like, what is your contribution? How do you use OpenStack, or anything that fits when it comes to OpenStack?
So with OpenStack, we founded a very important community, first off, from which to learn and to find operators who are trying to do things in a better way. And it's been great from that standpoint. We also, as you probably know, right as Mistral, which is the workflow as a service project related to OpenStack, was launching, we got involved, or was being proposed, really,
right.
Which is Hong Kong, back to Hong Kong. We got involved, and we've had a very good relationship there with that community and helped drive that project, and are a core committer and so forth. So that is an area. We've made some contributions over time to elsewhere, but the core of it is, for us, has been Mistral.
Very good. And what is your ask from the OpenStack community? Or what you mentioned earlier about the learnings of operators, but right now it's been like more than a year since you have launched, and then you've been listening to a lot of operators. Right now, or for the next 1 year, what would be your ask from the OpenStack community?
Well, I think OpenStack is a great community. We have a lot of vendor partners in that community, including Rackspace, who I've only mentioned like 6 times so far, so I'll only mention them 2 or 3 more times. And what I would say is that take a look at us, consider us for various use cases, CI/CD being an obvious one, auto remediation, or facilitated troubleshooting being a very, very important one that I probably should have emphasized more. Imagine having the OpenStack troubleshooting guide, most of it anyway, more or less encoded, so that you can step through those processes consistently each time. Still transparent, still auditable. So yeah, take a look at us, contribute to us, or at least complain in a smart way about what you see and what you don't see from StackStorm. Okay. I do think that something Patrick touched on before is some of what I've seen as somewhat missing in the overall OpenStack community, and I can expand on that if you want. But no, we're after users, contributors, and people who will just tell us, hey, why doesn't StackStorm help us do this yet, or and so forth.
Okay, great. And do you have OpenStack operators as your customers who can relay back either to you or to community directly on their challenges, and more importantly, like how StackStorm could help with their challenges? So
Yes, I mean, I think today, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Mid-Sprint Operator Summit in Philadelphia, and there will be a few people who are StackStorm users, whether they, are wearing bright orange hoodies or not, which is our color. They're there, and they have been very helpful in providing us some of that feedback.
That is great. That's great. Hey, Patrick, do you want to add something to that one, please?
Yeah, we do. We have some users that are using fairly large scale OpenStack deployments that contribute a lot of good feedback, not only to us, but they also have begun to participate in the broader OpenStack community as a whole, which I think is really important, providing feedback on some of the other products and things like that too, some of the other projects. So yeah, I mean that's really, Evan hit the nail on the head, I think, but yeah, that's really all I have to add for that.
Cool. Very good. Now, kind of expanding the scope to all of the startups in the OpenStack ecosystem, or maybe even the entire OpenStack ecosystem. Even share me your thoughts about what are your thoughts on OpenStack ecosystem right now, and specifically OpenStack startups right now?
Well, as I was saying before we started recording, I was at an event last week, 2 events, same day. In the morning, I was at a table in a discussion in which a couple of folks who were very early with OpenStack as contributors, as supporters, and they said this in a somewhat private context. So, but they basically were saying, hey, OpenStack is quote unquote dead. And one of them, to be fair, was in the process of being acquired by Docker, so maybe, but I think it was honestly how they felt. And containerization's everything. And then a couple hours later, I was at Rackspace Solve, and Walmart was on stage saying we're up to 130,000 cores running on OpenStack.
Yes.
As far as I can tell, OpenStack, at least in that deployment, has a pulse.
Yes.
So, what's the delta?
And
I think it's an important. Part of it is just a trough of disappointment, but I do think that, in my opinion, OpenStack is suffering in part from its own success in that it has a lot of large vendors contributing to it. That is resulting in a little bit of sprawl. It's not all bad, but there is some sprawl ongoing. But I also think that we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that these large vendors are investing billions of dollars of their own strategy in OpenStack.
Right.
And yes, they may not be doing as well as they might be able to in reaching out to and explaining the relevance, in my opinion, to developers. Because in the end, it's all about making developers more productive so that we can get better code in the hands of users, whether it's IT users or people on the end of one of these beautiful devices.
Oh, we lost you, Evan.
Yeah, I think Evan got hung up there. But yeah, I think the general point that Evan's trying to make is that it's all about the quicker turnaround, right? It's all about tightening that feedback loop and making it go a lot faster. And so that can be a little bit difficult at times when the large enterprises come in with the big contributions. But I think overall, OpenStack is learning and growing through that, and I think that's my opinion.
Good. I can agree with the trough of disillusion or the disappointment to certain industry watchers, but as Evan was talking about, and the Walmart use case and larger use cases that we are seeing, I'm seeing that I'm expecting a lot more successful deployments for OpenStack coming up, and I agree with the kind of the higher expectations and not the results not matching, or the number of success stories not matching those high expectations, but I'm overall very positive towards what the next couple of years is going to be for OpenStack. Cool. While we are waiting for Evan, maybe if you could tell me, you have the operational expertise, and you can probably talk about what do you see as the top challenges, top three challenges for StackStorm, not OpenStack specific, not any platform specific. Please go ahead and shoot your. What do you see as the challenges? This could be like the challenges that like technological challenges, or some of the challenges that users are facing, or something in doing the challenges for adoption.
I think
And
that I think that we have positioned ourselves really well for a fairly easy adoption by users. I think that the biggest
Mhm.
hurdle that I'm going to see is actually it's going to be in a paradigm shift and a mindset shift of the users to get them to move more towards that quick iteration across treating your behaviors as code, that type of thing. I think that there's going to be a little bit of retraining with the end users of the operational teams as to how they treat their scripts, how they treat their workflows and their automations in order to be able to really do that, in order to standardize the way that they express it, and in order to be able to iterate across it and do those code reviews. I think there's going to be a little bit of a hurdle there. I think that's going to be a big one. But yeah, that's really the biggest problem that I see. Adoption wise, we've made it very easy to get started with our platform at a minimum level and then expand on and use the bigger features as you go, though.
Okay. And your customers, when you mentioned that adoption is easier, so you are targeting customers who understand DevOps, who get DevOps, right? Or even trying to get into the education, like, oh, this is how DevOps could help improve your software delivery, software release. Are you getting there? Are you tackling those challenges, or are you just focusing only on customers who are already bought into the concept of DevOps?
No, we actually we early on had discussed the target of the DevOps understanding user, the user that understood DevOps. But what we found is that uh, there's kind of a rift between truly understanding DevOps and thinking you understand DevOps, if you will. And so there has been a lot of user education around what DevOps really means. And I feel that so we have done a lot of that, and we've done a lot of uh, we've really spearheaded a lot of that type of things into teaching our customers and even just people that want to come and chat in IRC with us about how we feel that DevOps is best used and the best ways to leverage DevOps. And like one of those things is that we get up and we scream from the hills about ChatOps a lot, and trying to get people going on ChatOps is one of those examples. That's a lot of people aren't familiar with it yet, but we really are trying to pound that home and get that going so people can realize how fast they can turn around issues and things like that with ChatOps.
Great, awesome. Hey, Evan, we lost you for a moment, but we were just talking about what are the challenges that StackStorm faces in
Great.
terms of not just specific to OpenStack, but irrespective of any platform. Patrick was just filling in about like how the adoption is really easy, but still like there is some education part that needs to do for customers who don't really get DevOps or who are still new to DevOps. So please feel free to add more. What do you see as the challenges?
Yeah. One that I've seen is that most large enterprises have bought packaged proprietary automation, runbook automation, in the past.
Yes.
And it, in general, didn't deliver the goods. And so the good news is CIOs and VPs of ops understand that automation of a sort that can handle an entire process is valuable. The bad news is they think it's utopian. Because it has, or dystopian, as the case may be, because some of these solutions, it would take you months to define your process. You code them in a special way into your automation solution, and then you're supposed to set it and forget it, because making changes to those automations is very, very hard. And we're quite different than that, in that, as we've said, we kind of grow the automation organically from your existing scripts even. We're a lot easier to maintain and so forth. But that can be a challenge, is every legacy vendor, in a good way, has bought runbook automation at some point, and here they are. So they're all out there marketing, we do DevOps, and take your processes, take several months, hire some professional services guys, and encode them into this system, and good luck ever, seeing them again. But and so we do have to cut through the clutter.
Okay. Would you draw analogy to this situation with the favorite legacy enterprise applications on private cloud or on OpenStack? So would you draw analogy to that, to the challenges faced trying to run your legacy apps on private cloud or even any cloud?
I think it is somewhat analogous. In part, in the automation space, what's so important is that the environment is now a cloud. And these automation systems were actually first built around typically bare metal, okay, maybe virtualization. But they were not built with the dynamism of today's infrastructure in mind at all. And so that imposes some real differences. But it's also something Patrick mentioned before, which is, and I was talking about as well, which is operational patterns as code where you can share them. You can't export your operational pattern from a VMware automation solution. I mean, if you ask them, hey, can I get this out as a YAML file, the answer is no, you can't. So they're like the black hole of process intelligence. They suck your intelligence in, but good luck getting it out, sharing it with your peers, with other groups, even in the same company. Or good luck code reviewing it in the way that Patrick was talking about before. So these automation systems, they're also not even automatable, right? Which is like the great irony of them. APIs, such as they are, suck.
Yeah, can I interrupt for a moment here, please?
Please.
No. Like there's two challenges here. First, realizing that the need for such a sharing, right? Like, are those customers even ready there yet? Or they realize that, okay, we no longer can operate in silos. We need to have like transparent. We need to be interoperating between these different silos. So there's a need for such a sharing. Even that education part or that realization part isn't there yet, as you would expect. Once they realize that one, then there is a difficulty of, okay, because of those legacy automation systems, then it's not even possible. So what are you referring to here, and what is a bigger challenge right now?
Well, I think the adoption that we're seeing is around a particular use case that you have as a user, and it could be around getting the agility of your developers into operations, and maybe CI/CD, or it could be around auto-scaling across maybe two clouds or something. There's a point, or it could be we have one big user who needs an if this then that for security events. Mm-hmm. So anyway, you have a new use case. You need to respond to a competitor. You need to move faster, and let's do it. Let's take StackStorm and compare how fast you can get to the first value, the first level of automation to enable that use case versus legacy automation system, X. Okay. And it's not close. And in fact, one of these large vendors, well, two now of these large vendors who has their own automation system inside themselves is starting to use StackStorm instead of their own automation system. So yeah, they're all going to rewrite. Okay. Or buy something, or do something, because it's a sea change in the requirements. Whether it's StackStorm or something else, they're all, if they want to be in the automation game, they're all going to do something fundamentally different in the next few years. Sweet.
And I bet that particular use case is going to be very interesting, and you should probably publish it soon, whenever the customer is ready.
Yes. We are very close to a couple of these, but it can be a little sensitive, of course, for the obvious reasons.
Right, that's right. Yeah, very good. Now, is there anything that, as someone who is involved in the OpenStack community, how can I be of help to StackStorm?
Patrick, what would you say? What would you most like to see from someone involved in the OpenStack community? More simple tie-ins to us, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like to see people writing integrations for whatever their specific use cases are. But the biggest thing that I want to see is I really just want people to hammer on it and give that honest, raw feedback about what it is that they want out of us. We get a lot of positive feedback, but I'd like people to hammer on me. Hit me with the 1-2 punch. What is it that we're missing? What is it that you want to see us add? What is it that we implemented in a way that you don't like? Give us that feedback and let us run with it and show you what we can do.
Great. Okay. I think you mentioned that you talked to operators before, and then if you can plug into the operators community, then we can hear more of that one. I'll see what I can make in terms of connections that we can do to who can give more feedback. I think I think I connected you with Subbu before. I'm not sure
Yes.
how that conversation went, but people like him would be a great help
Yes.
to you. Yeah.
Yes.
My ask back would be you mentioned that the design patterns are published or the behavior patterns are published. Is it can you please help me or someone to get started on this? How easy is it for me to put that on an OpenStack cloud or tweak it for OpenStack cloud? If I can get started, what I can add more would be to see if I can fine tune that for OpenStack clouds and get it published or get it added to the OpenStack operators or the GitHub. So that will give you more contribution into the OpenStack code base, and people can more jump in more.
Yeah, no, that'd be fantastic. We have some very easy ways to get started. I mean, from everything from Vagrant file and Docker file to Puppet module, all sorts of ways to easily deploy StackStorm and get it going. And so I can point you to all the documentation on that, which is pretty good, and then you can give it a try.
That'll be great. That'll be great. Cool. Very good. Interesting conversations. Even would you like to add any specific message to the audience?
Yeah, I think it comes down to people, and OpenStack is a community, and we're all working together. But we need to enable our scarcest resources, which tend to be those people that can both code and understand our entire operational environment,
Right.
to be massively more productive, because they're the bottleneck. These SREs are typically the bottleneck. So whether it's StackStorm or something else, again, tooling is not as important as the people, but tooling can help your people be happier and a lot more productive, and eventually even share some of their insights, again, as code, which is how they want to share them. So take a look at StackStorm or other solutions like that help your scarcest resource, your people, get a lot more productive in actually building and operating these large environments.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for joining us today at the OpenStack Startup Series. I wish you all the best for StackStorm, and hope to see you in Vancouver.
You'll see us there.
Yeah.
Yeah.